is Doug Downs.
And my name is Farzana Baduel.
All right. And in this episode, Farzana and I are going to debate, should public relations be regulated?
Now, public relations, it influences markets and politics and public opinion, institutions, and people's trust in information. It's a pillar for democracy. Now, yet unlike law, medicine, accounting, or engineering, PR is largely unregulated in most of the world.
I mean, anyone can call themselves a PR practitioner. Anyone. Same as a journalist, really. Anyone can open an agency. Anyone can provide counsel on issues that directly shape public life, and they often do.
Listen, I'm very much inspired by what is happening in parts of Africa. Things are changing in terms of regulation and the PR world. Kenya, Zambia, Nigeria have introduced legal frameworks requiring PR practitioners to be certified and licensed with penalties for non-compliance.
Supporters, like Farzana, say this protects standards, ethics, and livelihoods. Critics, like me, say it limits freedom, slows innovation, and risks politicizing communication.
We're going to take 3 angles to this debate. Now, number one, what problem are we trying to actually solve? And number two, would regulation protect the public or protect the practitioners? And number three, we're going to look at the practical reality. Would regulation, I'll do that again. Oh, sorry, I'm so crap today. Okay, 1, 2, 3. We are going to look at 3 major angles to our debate. So number one, we're going to look at what problem are we actually trying to solve? Number two, we're going to look at whether regulation will protect the public or protect the practitioner. And then number three, we're going to take a hard look at the practical reality. Would regulation help or hurt PR in democracies?
Okay, so number one, what problem are we trying to solve? Public relations has plenty of issues, Farzana, but licensing is not going to fix any of them. Our real weaknesses sit much deeper. Unclear role definition, fragmented practice, inconsistent measurement, big time, and a leadership pipeline that still skews far too heavily toward white dudes. That lack of diversity affects strategy, perspective, and the kinds of voices elevated in the industry, a structural flaw that no licensing system is going to magically solve. And the real threat facing public relations isn't unqualified practitioners. It's the polluted information ecosystems that we're all trying to operate in. AI-driven manipulation, foreign influence networks, coordinated trolls, anonymous online actors, they can all spread false narratives at a scale and a speed that no certification program can control here. Regulating ethical practitioners doesn't regulate the people actively trying to deceive the public. It just regulates the ones already trying to work responsibly. And regulation misunderstands the nature of communication. This isn't engineering with precise blueprints and predictable outcomes. It's contextual, it's interpretive, creative human judgment. Once you turn subjective communication quality into enforceable law, you risk empowering gatekeepers to decide who's legitimate and who isn't. Look at, for example, the Disinformation Governance Board in the United States a few years ago. It lasted only a few weeks before being shut down because people feared a government body would end up deciding which viewpoints were acceptable. That's the danger. Not that regulation starts with bad intentions, never, but that it drifts into deciding who gets to influence public conversations. And given the diversity and legitimacy challenges that PR is already facing, the last thing that we need is another gate that a small group gets to guard. If you regulate the storytellers, but not the story environment, you haven't solved the problem. You've shrunk the cast.
Well, you argue a very compelling position. However, Doug, things have changed. We are no longer in the 1990s. We are in this world where, back in the day, we couldn't, as PRs, put information into the ecosystem, we had to work through gatekeepers like journalists, and social media didn't exist. And so with journalists, what we had to do is we had to give them information. They were the judge and the jury, and they were trained in journalist ethics. They actually worked for media outlets that could be sued. And therefore, they had the culture within the organizations, and they also had the penalties that they faced if they ended up, say, creating disinformation. And so, therefore, the information system, although always had an agenda and a bias because of the owners of these media houses, fundamentally, there was guardrails in place. Now, with social media, PRs are able to produce information and put it straight in the public sphere. And as PR practitioners, we are more skilled than the average Joe Blogs on the road who is, tweeting away anonymously, spreading disinformation and misinformation. And so the problem that we're trying to solve is that there are no guardrails. We are heading into an extremely low trust society where AI is creating all sorts of content that people cannot decipher between what's real and what isn't real. It's going to undermine democracy. It's going to undermine social cohesion. It's going to undermine national stability. I think it's a major problem. And I think the first thing that we need to do, the problem that we're trying to solve is, if you look at Davos, every year they come up with their list of the biggest problems that the world faces. And in the top 10 and increasingly in the top 5, it's always disinformation, which is spreading information, false information with intent. And it's misinformation, spreading false information unknowingly. And we, as PRs, need to understand that we can't pass on the ethics to the journalist and the proprietors of the media outlets. We actually have power. And with power comes responsibility. And as an industry, we need to wake up, understand that, and ask for us as an industry to be regulated before we are hauled over the coals by governments bringing in clunky legislation that will hurt our industry. We should proactively engage the government and bring in the guardrails. And it can start off with something very, very light, but we'll come on to that.
Okay, good arguments. Democracy is ugly, but it's the best ugly we got.
Mm-hmm. Now, number 2, would regulation protect the public or protect the practitioner? I would say, I would argue both. So I would argue that, yes, everyone understands it will protect the public because of the misinformation, the disinformation, and so forth. And, we live in such a dirty information ecosystem that people just don't know where to go. And at least they will realize that actually organizations, brands that hire PRs, that there's going to be a trust difference, a trust differential. And then that would also protect the practitioners, because then people would want to have PR people producing information for them, because it brings a level of trust that the public will therefore understand. Just like the public understand, by and large, if you work with a qualified lawyer, if you work with a qualified accountant to get accounts that are audited, like charities, Charities Commission in the UK, for instance, they basically require audited accounts by qualified practitioners. It brings trust into the whole charity system and the public trust with charities. So that trust will be brought back in with the PR industry, which at the moment we're quite a low trust, profession. People don't even regard us as a profession. People think, we're all a bit dodgy and they wouldn't trust us as far as we can, as far as they can throw us. And so of course it will protect the practitioner. It will actually protect us, and it will give us what we are looking for. It will give us a sense of purpose, and we will be a net positive to society.
See, for me, on paper, regulation, it claims to protect the public, but in practice, I think it often ends up protecting the incumbents. Licensing tends to create barriers that keep established players comfortable and make it harder for new, diverse, or independent practitioners to get into the field. And when the issue we're trying to solve is disinformation, misinformation, regulation completely misses the real target. The people spreading the most toxic and coordinated misinformation, disinformation, state actors, troll farms, bot networks, anonymous influencers are never going to apply for a PR license. Regulation affects the ethical professionals, not the bad actors. And once governments or regulatory bodies gain the power to define what counts as harmful or misleading, the line between public protection and political protection, that gets blurry and gray real fast. We saw the tension in the UK, Farzana, a few years ago with the early drafts of the online safety bill. Its legal but harmful category was so vague that civil liberties groups warned it could suppress journalism, activism, satire, and even legitimate political criticism, not because the intention was malicious, but because the definitions were broad enough to be stretched by anyone in power. It's a perfect example of how a regulation designed to protect the public can drift into protecting institutions instead, simply by narrowing who gets to speak and under what conditions. So the real risk is that regulation becomes a shield for incumbents and a filter for acceptable voices rather than a tool for safeguarding citizens. The more you raise the regulatory walls, the more you push out the challengers, the independents, the new thinkers, the uncomfortable truth tellers, the people who often serve the public best and the most. And the more you rely on licensing to police information, the easier it becomes for well-intentioned frameworks to be weaponized when the political winds change. You can't beat disinformation by shrinking the profession. The people spreading lies aren't lining up for certification.
Now, Doug, you raise a number of valid points. For instance, will it end up raising barriers to entry and therefore kill the individual practitioners as well as the small businesses, which are such the lifeblood of the PR industry? Now, you seem to think that it's very binary, that it's very black and white. You're going to have huge regulation or zero regulation. It's not like that.
You like something in between.
Well, yeah, it's going to be the Goldilocks approach, right? Not too hot, not too cold, the bed not too soft, not too hard. And it's really about bringing an initial level of regulation, which, for instance, could be something as simple as signing up to a code of conduct.
I want to feel free to choose the bowl of porridge that I want to choose. I don't want somebody telling me that's too cold or that's too hot, but that's me. Number 3. Would regulation help or hurt PR in democracies? The core question with regulating communication is simple. Who ends up controlling expression? That's it. In democratic societies, communication is an extension of free expression, and free expression is something democracies protect fiercely. The moment governments or central bodies begin regulating speech-adjacent professions, that protection weakens. Regulation may be framed as neutral oversight and just here or just there, and that the bowl is the perfect temperature, but it carries an inherent risk of becoming a political tool, especially when it governs who is allowed to communicate professionally and under what conditions. That don't fly. That risk becomes acute when regulation is justified through the concept of disinformation. Disinformation is not a fixed or stable term. Its meaning shifts depending on who holds power, depending upon the receiver in some cases. It's not black and white, which makes it particularly dangerous when tied to licensing or professional approval. A clear example of this is the Global Engagement Center in the United States, established in 2016 under President Obama to counter foreign propaganda from actors like Russia, China, Iran. Its original mission focused on external threats. Great intentions. Over time, however, critics, including journalists, civil libertarians, and lawmakers argued that it drifted toward influencing or pressuring decisions about domestic speech. The democratic response to bad speech has never been sanctioned speech. It always has been more speech and better speech. That's the cure here. Information integrity improves through education, media literacy, and transparency, not through professional policing. And once regulation is introduced, it rarely becomes less restrictive over time. Definitions expand, oversight hardens, and the space for dissent gradually contracts. That is the fundamental tension. Frameworks designed to protect the public can over time constrain the very openness that democracies depend on. Democracy breaks the moment you need permission to participate in it.
Now, Doug, it is 2025. You're trying to tell me that our educational system is fit for purpose and our children are growing up with the level of media literacy that they need in order to navigate this new world order of AI-powered disinformation and misinformation. We are being gamified. There is hostile state actors undermining democracies using a lot of this disinformation strategies. Societies are beginning to crumble. It's going to get worse. Recently, we had a AI-produced fake video of one of our journalists, our presenters, Yalda Hakim, in Sky News, and actually, what ended up happening is news outlets thought it was real and started reporting on it. This is the dystopian world that we are sleepwalking into, and what we need at the very basic level is people like us whose role it is to strategically manage the information that flows between an organization and its publics to sign up to a code of conduct. And perhaps if there is further appetite, because I don't believe in going from zero to hero, I believe in bringing things in gradually. But you need to horizon scan and know that we are no longer in Kansas. We are in a new world. And therefore, code of conduct. So first of all, ensuring that all PR practitioners, they actually have a license to operate. In order to get a license to operate, they need to have a minimum level of skills and competencies in order to protect the public from PRs who set up shop and don't know what they're doing. And also the other aspect that they need to do is sign up to continual professional development, CPD, that should have a mandatory ethics component. There is a huge ethical framework around information production, and especially with AI and bias and so forth. And if we are the profession that is pumping out information and we have no idea, only a fraction of our industry is signed up to the industry bodies or the professional bodies, and therefore the majority of PRs do not sign up to a code of conduct. They are not taking ethics components. They don't even have CPD. It's not even good for them, because if they don't have CPD, they're the ones who are going to be in danger of not having a job in 5 years, because they're not actually signed up to understand what are the changes in the industry and what are the new skills that they need to adapt to. And this superfluous sort of constant, tsunami of channels that are hitting us. So it's not even good for the practitioner. It's a win-win. It's a win for the practitioner. It's a win for society that we are professionals. The journalists are no longer there to hold the line for democracy. We now have this sense of purpose, and we need to step up and not be hauled over the coals by the government in due course when they realize that they need to clean up this dirty ecosystem, and we will have the fingers blamed at us. There are a number of tiny bad actors in the PR industry that put the rest of us to shame. The majority of us want to do a good job, and we want to do what's good for our client, good for our organization, and good for society. And I would argue that actually the regulation that there is a component of code of conduct and CPD will protect democracy and will protect the PR industry. It is a win-win.
When you mentioned the Wizard of Oz, I realized you were right. The moment the wizard gave the scarecrow a certificate proving he had a brain, that made it so. The certificate fixed everything.
Well, it's a certificate along with a compulsory CPD. It's what other professions do. I used to be, accountants, lawyers. Why are we still acting as if we are adolescents? PR has been around for a long time. Now is our moment. Now is our chance. And now is our chance to also do the right thing by society.